Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for episode 27 of Side Convos. I am Rick Huntsman.
And what's up? This is Quince.
And we're coming to you guys live, as always, from American Top Team here in Watertown.
That's right. And, today we're going to talk a little bit about environment, the impact that it has on us and human behavior, and, the impact that we have on the environment itself. And, I guess I kind of want to break it down in a way that, I see environment almost like the soil from which we grow, the soil from which we grow. So we're talking about, being able to plant seeds of success, plant seeds to flourish. You're going to need, the right soil for it. And when I think of environment, this could be, internal environment as far as the thoughts you think, your diet and what you eat, your exercise. This could be your social environment, the people that you keep around you, the conversations that you have. And it could be, the environment within the community, what there is to do, climate, and physical things of those natures, and also size and amount of people. And this can go as far as, universal environments, if you want to take it that far. But we'll reel it back in just a little bit. Just a little tiny bit. And I think it's best to understand. It's always best to start, I think, with yourself and understand how you work. I think a lot of times we talk about, self-motivation and mindfulness and things of that nature. And this is no different. I think getting a proper balanced internal environment is always your best foot forward and your best tool to approach any situation, really. Because once you understand that, the external environments are nothing more than understanding your situation and embracing, adapting to change, and then creating. And that, in my mind, that's kind of how I broke down these 3 steps to really make the most out of your environment. Sure. So after, understanding the self, we're looking at embracing the environment in which you're in right now. Right. And that has a lot to do with being a realist and being realistic and honest with your situation. Sure. In the place that you live, because what it does is create a sturdy foundation for you to start on. These are things for the most part that are outside of your control. For example, we're in upstate New York in the North Country where, 5-6 months out of the year it's going to snow. It's going to be cold. It's going to be brutal. It's not like this everywhere, but sure. Right here it's what it's going to be. Right. You can complain about it all you like to, but it's not going to change it. The only thing you could really do, if you got the money, you could shoot out of here for the winter or not. Sure. But what you have to do, you have to embrace it. Right. You either find things that you enjoy doing out in this cold, or you stay your ass inside and write a book or be productive or do whatever you're doing. But you got to embrace and be realistic with the situation that you're in.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things. Very much this past winter. Luckily, it's been pretty mild, pretty tame and stuff. So there's not 5 foot of snow everywhere. Mm-hmm. So life's been pretty easy. But it was a really easy adaptation for myself. Kind of this notion of embracing the environment. Mm-hmm. And we started talking about this the other day. We just gone for a walk down at the. Went down to Whaley's Park there in Henderson. We took a nice long walk with the dog, and there's snow out and everything, and but it was, maybe like 30 degrees, and I looked at Rachel, I was like, it feels nice out here. Mm-hmm. It felt, to me, it felt like it was 50, 60 degrees. It was just very comfortable, very enjoyable to be out there, and I realized, that's when it kind of dawned on me before I approached you about doing this specific topic, mm-hmm. was this constant forcing myself to embrace the environment. Every right. morning when I walk outside, to get ready to come to the gym, I stand completely still, take a deep breath in, exhale, and say, this is where I am.
Right.
And we've talked about a lot of being in the moment, living now, and stuff like that, and that's where I really started developing that mentality. But I think through that practice, one of the fringe benefits is the fact that every single time I walk outside, regardless of what's going on in the weather, this is what I have, this is what's in front of me, and physically just embracing that.
Yeah.
And I don't say, oh fuck, this sucks, it's freezing cold out today. I tell myself, this is what I have to work with, how do I make the best of it? You know, and I didn't realize the effect that was having until, like I said, until this weekend. I realized how much I had learned, you know, kind of accidentally, how to embrace the physical environment. I'm very, very happy for that.
Sure, you know, and definitely happy is the term for it, because not only does it provide that foundation for me to start on, but it helps you appreciate it for what it is. Yes. You know, it's because you learn to appreciate the things for what it is and for what it isn't. Right. As long as you can be honest and realistic with the situation.
That goes back. We were chatting a few minutes ago before we turned the camera on about that comparative mindset, right? So when you walk outside and it's 30 degrees, if you say to yourself, well, it sucks here because somewhere else it's 70 and sunny, or if you say, well, it's not as bad here as it is in Antarctica right now because it's negative 20 there, or out in Wisconsin, you know, where they have 3 feet of snow, and instead of comparing it to everything else and disconnecting yourself from the situation, you embrace it, and like you said, you appreciate it for exactly what it is, and understand, you know, this is what I have. Like you put it, this is the soil I have to plant my seed in. You know, and so that kind of, I was thinking of that metaphor that you laid out, and obviously not every seed is going to grow in every soil. So what do we do? You know, because we have, if we define our seed as our purpose, right, as our reason to be here, our purpose isn't going to just grow in any environment, right? We have to cultivate an environment that we can allow that seed to grow, right? So what are the steps that we take? What are the things that you found yourself doing to alter the soil, alter the environment you're in, so you can take that same purpose and let it work for you where you are?
Yeah, I think whether it's purpose or potential, I think the first thing is, like I was saying, embracing it. Like when I first came up here, you know, I didn't really know too many people, and I worked mostly with hip hop. You know, I was familiar with hip hop and rap music and culture. And when I came up here, I didn't really know, I didn't see that diversity, you know, in the music scene or in the talent or the musicians. And you know, and at first, you know, I could be like, well, you know, where is everybody? Why does all this music sound different, or to me it sound the same? You know, there was a bunch of like heavy metal, and you know, there was some jam bands and some cover bands. But instead of, because I could fight against that all I wanted to, but instead I was just like, well, this is where I am. I've got to learn to embrace it. So I would go out and I would check out these shows, and I learned to appreciate. I fucking like heavy metal music, you know, some heavy metal right now. Learn to appreciate that for what it was, and maybe the history behind it and how other people got into it. Learn to appreciate why people live a life of cover music and cover bands, you know, as they travel out and get paid to do gigs. Because trust me, they get paid more than, you know, the majority of originals around here. So now I better understand their mentality and their talent and their skill set. So it helps me appreciate that. And from there, I learned to adapt maybe what I thought at first, you know, maybe what I thought my potential might be. I learned to redefine my potential and purpose in that area and adapt to it, you know? So, okay, if I want to fit in and grow with this environment in this area, my music will have to sound a little bit different. It might have to be a little bit harder. I can still say the same things with the same content and with the same truth that I have, but I adapt it to the environment that I'm in. So I think after embracing your situation, it's learning to adapt, you know, and it's about changing yourself first before you can change the environment, I think. Because although I do believe self and environment, as far as change goes, is reciprocal, I think environment plays a huge role, has a huge impact on the person first.
So who's that Trent, that's his name, right, that you sent me that interview with over
yeah, I don't remember the dude's full name.
Yeah, shit.
But we can link it in the
yeah,
underneath
we
afterwards.
Should, he talked, what I'm kind of understanding is very similar to the way you're putting it. He's, former NFL star, turned motivational speaker, and he talked a lot about purpose isn't, you don't go out and find purpose. Like, your purpose isn't out there in the world somewhere. Your purpose is inside of you.
Yes.
It's your responsibility to find the environment in which that can grow.
Right.
So while I think we have to make certain changes and certain concessions to the environment. We have to adapt ourselves so that we can grow there.
Right.
But on the reciprocal end of that, like you said, self influences the community influences self, right? So once you adapt to that community, you understand, then you can start making some changes. Yes. And I'm sure you've seen the culture around you change.
Absolutely.
And that, you guys have put on specifically hip hop shows, which, probably 5-6 years ago, that wasn't even a thing,
right?
But it's this constant reciprocity between the self and the environment, sure. And each making concessions to the other. Because as soon as one hardens to the other, if we harden ourselves to the environment doesn't give a shit about us. The environment will spit us out.
It's going to grow right over top of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Then if the environment hardens ourselves to us, that's when it's time for us to leave.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, I think there's absolutely a very significant reciprocity there. While we can change the way we cultivate our purpose, I don't know if we ever have to accept and change our purpose, because once we feel compelled.
Yeah, at its core,
yeah.
I don't think you have to give that or sacrifice that at all.
Right.
If you really have a firm grasp, on your potential or your purpose or what it is that drives you, you can apply it anywhere. Yeah. And it's about first understanding that where anywhere is or what it is or why it is. Now, don't get me wrong. If you get dropped in an acidic situation or acidic soil or an acidic mind state or group, you're not going to grow.
Right.
It doesn't matter how strong your purpose is. If you don't have the nutrients around you, if the people that you keep around you are negative, and you find that the conversations always steer towards some bullshit, or if you find that your group of people are unmotivated and complacent, then it doesn't matter how driven you are, you're not going to reach your potential. You still might stand out within that group, but that's a big fish, small pond type mentality. So no matter what, you do have to adapt, your social environment around you.
You're only going to grow so big with weeds keeping you down.
Sure.
Sure. But that, I think, that goes back to the embracing your environment, understanding and that honesty with yourself.
Yeah.
I think it's important. Something I was thinking of is perspective. When you were talking about kind of your adaptation to the heavier metal scene in the area and stuff, is we can learn and appreciate an environment differently once we meet the people, once we embrace the people, right. And once we spend time talking to people and getting to know them. And I know for me personally, so just an example of this, there was a Foo Fighters album that came out like 5 or 6 years ago, and I was listening to it, and there was a big change in the sound, and I didn't really dig it. It wasn't like their old stuff, and I was like, all right, cool, Dave Grohl's growing as an artist, whatever, fine. And then I listened to an interview. No, it wasn't an interview. I was at a show. I was at a Foo Fighters show, and they were about to play a song off their new album, and he said, "This is my favorite song off this album. My favorite song that I wrote." He's like, "This just really speaks to me. This is who I am."
Yeah.
And he played it, and it hit me differently. And when I went back and listened to the album, all of a sudden the album hit me differently. And I was like, all right, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. This resonates a little differently. But I had taken the time, and I understood his perspective on it a little bit.
Sure.
So you understand the artist's perspective. It's the same thing as talking to people who like heavy metal.
Right.
Man, I don't get this when you look at it on the surface.
Right.
And then you meet somebody who does. You have a conversation with them. They explain to you, this is my favorite song. This changed my life in this way. This speaks to me like this, or this is what this does for me as a person.
Yeah. And
if you embrace their perspective and you understand that, all of a sudden now you learn something different about the environment. And now you can see a different path to help cultivate purpose.
Yep.
And I mean, what's purpose other than helping other people grow?
Yeah. Oh, it's all connection.
Right.
All connection. And that's what you were able to do. At first that music that was unfamiliar to you, kind of was a barricade from you getting through it because you were used to something different completely. You connected in a different way. But once you were able to connect, not in that artistic way necessarily, but at the human level, and then you come back around and listen to the art created, you know, from that individual, from their perspective, which now you have a little a glimpse in. Absolutely.
And that, I mean, even that changed my whole perspective on almost on life. Obviously, very specifically with music, but there's music that I find deplorable. There's a lot of pop stuff that just seems, you know, again, aesthetic at best. It's skin deep, and there's no real substance to it. And I think, why the fuck do people like this? But when I stop and I take a second to embrace the potential perspective that somebody might have, you know, okay, well, somebody likes this for a reason that I don't understand, that I don't agree with, that I don't see. That doesn't mean that it's shitty all over. It just means that I don't necessarily like it, and I don't have to. But there's value in it to someone for some reason, and that's okay. I mean, I'm gonna still change the station when it comes on, you know, but
and that's fine.
You know, I don't have to. I don't hate it so much. I don't waste that negative energy on something that ultimately doesn't matter, or even worse, that actually means something to somebody else. You know?
No, very important. And you know, that happens to artists all the time. You know, artists with any sort of longevity try to continue forward. A lot of their fans or whoever expect certain, you know, something certain from them, whether it's content or style or image. And if that veers anyway, now, you know, the people are up in arms because that's how they see themselves, you know, that's how they view it, that's how they connect. And a lot of times, I think artists kind of get themselves boxed in or box themselves in because now, once you get a fan base, and this is how fans connect and view you and expect and what they expect from you, artists tend to cater to that and placate to that, which now, if that's not their true form or potential, they're doing themselves a disservice because they don't continue to grow anymore. It's almost like staying in soil where you use all the nutrients, and now you're not going to grow any taller. You don't get switched to a different fucking whatever planter, whatever. Not to kill this metaphor,
there's
but
just enough to stay alive.
And that's it. And that's it.
Sure.
You know, and it's difficult to take yourself out of a place where people hold you highly, and for whatever reasons, you know, and to kind of start back at day one and rebuild. There we go, get that money. You know, and start to rebuild again. You know, for the core needs and values that you first started with.
As you're talking about this, you're talking about artists being creative and stuff, and looking at my notes, the way you laid it out, embrace, adapt, create. So embrace the environment you're in, adapt yourself to it, and then help create and cultivate an environment that you would like to grow in. The word create resonates with me differently as we focus a little more on the artistic endeavors, because I think one of the most important things we can do as human beings to enhance our soul and to grow is to create. I had a good friend of mine, she used to be a student here, Melissa Yanitel. She's since gone out west and is actually cultivating her own purpose in a very beautiful way out there on her own. She's found a new environment. She's had to adapt, and these things that we you know, talk about a lot. But one of the things that she turned me on to, one of the mindsets she turned me on to, was the opposite of war is not peace. The opposite of war is creation. Because war is death and destruction, and then the opposite end of that is creation. And I think that really speaks to the human need and the soul's need to create, to in some way or another be artistic. And that can expand into creating a positive environment too. Because that's a form of creation, that's a form of artistry as well.
Absolutely.
You know, so like you spoke about the music scene here, and you were able to adapt to it to a certain extent without losing your sense of purpose, and then help create a positive new scene, you know, and integrate with these other artists, and then become mutually beneficial. You know, you bring your own kind of nutrients to the area and help others grow. And it can be, you know, mutually beneficial. And all of a sudden, you guys are not only are you creating music and creating art, but you've created a community. You've created a soul. You've created this living entity in this kind of music scene, you know?
And you know, and not only that, because that's not the end result, that's the start of the new result.
Right.
Because that then becomes the new foundation for which people can grow from and grow on, because say new ideas or new individuals come into the situation and it still might not work completely for them.
Right.
But if they follow the same steps as far as embrace, adapt, and create, now they can add to in whatever vision, in whatever way that their potential shares. And so it continually grows, it, you know, and changes and adapts. And, you know, and it does, you know, for all the people that put in the work, the genuine work, it is all inclusive.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like to, you know, I don't want to act like everybody gets a prize type of mentality. But, you know, if you put in the genuine work on yourself and with connecting with others that are putting in that genuine work, everyone can be involved in one form, you know.
And it's interesting because it doesn't matter how positive of an environment it is, it's not going to be for everybody, ultimately.
Right.
Ultimately, it's not going to be the place where everybody can grow to their full potential. Case in point is I really like to think that we have a great environment here at American Top Team. And I've made a ton of friends here. I've seen a lot of people grow as martial artists, as people. I've cultivated a lot of friendships. And it seems overwhelmingly people have a positive experience here. Everybody always gets better. We've had some guys that are successful as fighters. People are, you know, win grappling competitions and stuff like that. You know, we're not on the world famous scene or anything, but for, you know, for the community that we have and the area we have, I feel like it's a very vibrant and, you know, I guess to not beat your metaphor to death, I'm going to keep using it. Right? Very nutrient rich environment. That being said, I have two friends of mine who trained here for a while and have since left and got out to Colorado to a different gym. And not that ours wasn't a good environment, but for what they want, for their purpose and their growth, their level of growth, they had to go somewhere else that had a different environment to cultivate them differently. You know, and they're actually, I believe they both just signed pro contracts. Between the two of them, they've had 3 professional MMA fights now, and they're doing incredibly well. They found a beautiful environment out there and are flourishing. Nice. And but that was their purpose, that was their destiny. And they, no matter how good the environment here was, they adapted to it while they were here. They still grew while they were here, but eventually they got to a point where they needed something different.
Absolutely.
You know, they needed something more for themselves. And they left, and I'm very grateful that, you know, we had the time here to work with them. I learned a ton from them. I was able to corner both of them in a few fights, and we walked away with a lot of wins, and, you know, great, awesome experience. And I was able to grow from them being here. They gave back as much as they took out, and they left and went on to continue to grow. You know, which again, it doesn't matter how good the environment is, if it's not what you want or if it's not what you need. You still eventually have to leave.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you still have to find ways to grow. Because man, I can't tell you how many times, whether it's about the gym here or the music scene or the area itself, you know, people complain like it's their job. Oh, the gym doesn't have this for me, or the music scene doesn't have this, or the area doesn't have that. And the conversation is necessary. The conversation is necessary to start that off, as far as, you know, that's part of embracing, understanding what the place has and what it doesn't. You know, but you're cutting yourself short of that second step, adapting and utilizing what it does have, or capitalizing on what it doesn't have. So it just becomes, it's no longer a conversation. It's you're getting in your own way.
Yeah, it's a bitch fest.
Yeah, it's a bitch fest, and it becomes an excuse at a certain point. Now, if you, like these gentlemen come, they're here, they adapt to the situation, they understand the surroundings, and they know what it is they need. They're adapting. Sometimes adapting is, to go to a different spot.
Absolutely. You know, and at a certain point, sometimes you just outgrow your environment.
Sure.
And that's just case in point. You know, sometimes you just outgrow your environment, and that's a fact. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's I didn't take it as a slight on our gym. I didn't take it as a slight on the facilities or the area or anything like that. But just they didn't have what they wanted here, and they did what they could to make the best of their time here, and then when they were ready, they left, and I get that.
Yeah.
And they never bitched about the gym. They never complained about being here. They're always happy to train, and they got better while they were here. And yeah, so it doesn't always have to be negative leaving. Especially a lot of the friends that I make here, a lot of the students that we have are in the Army, and eventually they have to leave.
Right.
And for some people it's very painful. A lot of the people that we've had leave, I've had some very, very good friends of mine leave the area, and it was through no fault of their own. But when they leave, I can still see these people thrive in different areas.
Sure.
I've got a good friend of mine out in Colorado too. He just became a certified yoga instructor, so he's doing really well. I was talking to a good friend of mine. I think you know Courtney. He just moved down to Oklahoma not too long ago. I was talking to him the other day. He's doing incredibly well. Everybody's going to Colorado, I guess.
Is that the place to be?
I guess so, man. Another good friend of mine moved out there not too long ago after he got out of the Army, and I was chatting with him the other day, and last he was here before he moved, he was recovering from an injury and he wasn't able to train much, but he's just got back into training. He's growing and he's adapting to his environment. So no matter what the circumstances are, and that's kind of what's beautiful about social media and stuff too, is it's easier to keep up with people, and you can see that these people are growing where they're being transplanted, and that's what's beautiful about my job, is that whatever I can do while they're here, I hope that in some way that it helps influence that growth mindset. Wherever they go, they're able to find ways to continue to grow and to continue to elevate themselves and to elevate those around them.
Yeah, because it's easy when you're in, say when you're in this close group and everybody speaks the same, and you go through, your routines, and we progress together. But when you get taken out of that group, thrown into, just the wild, and at first it is intimidating. Sure. At first everything is unfamiliar looking around you, but reverting back to these steps, having that mentality and perspective as your foundation to build off, it's just part of that same process. You start working on a process, that first step, and it changes and it grows around you, and no matter what, you are where you are. You know what I mean? And any place you go, you still are where you are. Yeah.
Exactly. And that seems incredibly inane to say, you are where you are. Yeah, no shit. But embrace that.
Embrace it.
It's that quote from Seneca. It's when you're hungry, eat. When tired, sleep. It's like, yeah, no shit. When I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. When I'm tired, I'm going to go to sleep. But it means stay in that moment. Right. Be in that moment. When you're hungry, eat. Focus on eating. Right? When you're tired, go to sleep and focus on sleeping. Don't think about the shit you got to do tomorrow. Right. You are where you are. Don't think about how you wish you were somewhere else. Don't think about how you wish things were better. Don't think about how things used to be better. Don't think about how bad it is right now.
Because those same people that I was talking about, that use it as an excuse. They don't like you here because this reason, and if that's your MO, that's your conversation that you bring to the table. You know what? Pick your location. Yeah. I'll buy you the fucking bus ticket. Yeah. And let you go there for a couple months. Yeah. And see what happens. I bet that's your conversation there too. Yeah. So it really is that mindset, and I think that's a lot of what we try to understand here, with these convos, and just convos honestly in general, connecting with people.
Well, it's that internal environment. It's the environment of self. Yeah. And if you have if you have that acidic internal environment, no matter where you go, you're going to take that with you.
Absolutely.
And maybe for some people, it's getting out of the area. Yeah. For some people, but that's a perspective shift, and that's fine. And I'm not, I understand the desire to get out of the area. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of times where I just wanted to leave. Sure. But through the years and through the iterations and through the reps and everything, and once I finally realized that I had more power to influence the environment around me, if I cultivated a positive environment for myself and let that grow. Right. And man, I've had just absolutely amazing people in my life. I've had coaches and mentors and training partners and friends and just awesome students and a ton of people that have helped nourish me and helped me cultivate a mindset and dealt with me when I was a shitty person, haven't just throwing me out when I was, when I was bad,
Right.
and helped me grow and stuck around while I grow. And for that, I'm very, very lucky, very grateful, and very much realize that I have the power to influence people the same way they've influenced me.
Right.
To make that positive internal environment and spread it to the environment around me.
Sure.
Absolutely.
What do we got?
We got Alex Slurry with a little shout out. Sup, Alex? Up to no good this morning, I trust.
Must be. It's on his phone at work.
Yeah.
Yeah, in moving here, I guess I had a different, slightly different perspective because I'm not from here.
Sure.
So I do encourage people to travel and to move around and get outside your comfort zone, and because me coming out here was outside of my comfort zone.
Sure.
Which was, certainly overwhelming to me at first until, and even when I got here, I didn't necessarily have the steps down as far as what I wanted to accomplish, right. What I thought I was capable of accomplishing. These are all things that will,
Work. Working real hard, aren't you?
Yeah. But that I learned as I went, and adapted to, and through that process, same exact thing. The people or the mentors or the friendships or the family, that you find and that you meet and that you can grow with, that help shape you,
right.
as you are also, as it turns out, shaping them.
Yeah.
That's like I said, it's all part of the process. It can be done anywhere. For me, that was this, was here for me. And like you said, other people can go and they can find it elsewhere, but you still can't escape that process in order, to get to that level of connection.
Absolutely, man. And it's interesting. This is going to sound more cynical than I mean it, but people aren't going to stick around if they can't get anything from you.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's a very one-way street. Sometimes there are people that take from you. We talked a couple months ago about protecting your energy and stuff, and sometimes there are people that are just going to take from you. But in a less cynical light, and kind of more how I mean it is, if you can help somebody grow, they're going to be more inclined to want to spend time around you.
Sure.
And you're going to be more inclined to want to spend time around them if you feel like they're going to help you grow. If it's mutually beneficial, if you can help them change and adapt, they can in turn help you change and adapt. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
The self in your external environment, right? Or you and I, say for example, I have my internal environment, you have yours.
Right.
I can influence your internal environment, you can in turn influence mine, and we can both grow and we can challenge each other, we can help each other change and benefit. And we're not going to choose to sit down every week and have a conversation if there's not going to be mutual growth. Right? Yeah, okay, it would have been cool, but eventually, at some point, if you're not growing, if you're not helping each other, if it's not mutually uplifting, why keep doing it? So yeah, I don't think people stick around in whatever environment.
Yeah.
If there's not a benefit there.
Sure. Because if there's growth, there's change, and that's actually, this is a conversation I've been having often. As far as what is fated or what is happen chance. Because I think it's the ego that might get connected on. Oh, we had these conversations. We produce, we grow. But if that changes, I think the ego might hold on to a little bit. I'm like, well, shit, this is how I define myself, by this and this. So we get stuck in it, and we don't let time move as it does naturally. We don't let people change as it does naturally. We don't allow ourselves to change as it does naturally, because even when we come into those situations in which there is growth, a sudden burst of growth or progress or understanding, eventually, as that understanding becomes the new norm and the new foundation, there are still levels to be reached. And to be able to grow on from that is very natural. So the conversations I've been having are ones of possibly having to let that go. And that shit is hard, but necessary.
There's a tendency to define ourselves by a moment instead of a process. You get stuck in. I mean, you see, guys that are stuck in that high school mindset. Reliving the glory days all the time, and we're stuck in that moment. And a lot of times we're bitter, upset. And I mean, I know when I backtrack and I put myself in a previous moment, I get depressed, you know, and you define yourself. And then I was thinking about that a little bit too when you were talking about artists and how people define themselves by the artist and define themselves by this album,
image.
define themselves by this song, you know, and then when that artist changes, there's a backlash against that because they're defining themselves by something external instead of defining themselves by understanding the process of growth and constant change.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Appreciating the moment for what it is, and then understanding that yes, you know, everything is constant change, and everything's constant growth.
Yeah, appreciating the moment for what it is, appreciating the person for who they are, or the connection for what it is. Because I think too often, people define themselves off of the person they're with, you know, or some of the company they keep.
How many times have you know, throughout the course of your life and various different relationships and stuff, how many times have you had the conversation where it's, well, we used to do this, or this used to be how it was. And unfortunately, anytime that conversation is tabled, there's always a little bit of animosity with it. So then a lot of times it turns into a conflict instead of an opportunity to grow. And, you know, usually a little bit of yelling, a little bit of, you know, hurtful shit, but that's how, you know, people are shitty to each other sometimes, and that's just the nature of life. But defining ourselves by a singular moment instead of understanding that there's gonna be change and it can't stay that way forever. And if it does stay that way forever, it's stagnant and it's boring and it's old and there's no growth.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. And, you know, and that's the reason that it's, you know, I think the connection became in the first place is because there was the opportunity for growth there. But, you know, you can't stop there. There's no place in which you stop there. You know.
One thing when you were talking about when we moved, we find ourselves in a new environment. It's kind of scary, especially if you move from a very nurturing environment to something you don't know. You're not necessarily desiring to leave. It can be chaotic. When you reach a new moment, you know, we were using the example of a relationship, and you go from how things were, we've both grown and changed. Now we have to re-examine that change, and it becomes chaotic. You and I were talking about this when we were training this morning, we were sparring, and it's chaotic, right? Chaos has a tendency to make us panic. Because we don't understand it. You know, especially when we go from a life of order to a moment of chaos, and we freak out, right? What you and I were talking about this morning that I think beautifully translates to life overall is embracing that chaos, accepting it, and not only saying, okay, this is going to end soon, but understanding that if I stay calm and if I just, you know, this morning, literally, if I just roll with the punches, eventually I'm going to see my opportunities to strike, right? And in life, if we understand that, yes, this moment is chaotic, it's unpleasant, it's difficult, it's hard to understand, and that's fine. If you tense up, if you shell up, if you try to run away, you're gonna get tired, you're gonna get exhausted, and you're gonna lose the exchange. Right? And if you can stay calm, if you can wait, if you can just keep, like sometimes we just have to keep ourselves safe, and we just have to wait, and we have to understand, we have to breathe, we have to wait, and then all of a sudden we're gonna start seeing these moments, you know, start seeing these openings. You know, again, pulling off that metaphor of training this morning. That last round we did, you stayed calm. Even when I was kind of putting a little more pressure on you, you stayed calm, and you started countering, you started picking your spots, you started landing your shots and stuff. You looked much more comfortable. You came out of it, you seemed like you enjoyed the round much more, you know? And I mean, that's one of the metaphors that translates from the mats to life. And
there was no better example for me than that, and then actually being present and being mindful, because the first few rounds I'm reacting, everything's moving fast, I'm not thinking about my breath, I'm thinking about the punches you're throwing, and it's a very chaotic situation, and I'm trying to make sense of it. And I'm like trying to think about, what I was trained to do in this situation, what I was trained to do there, when am I supposed to breathe and all this stuff. And I'm out of breath, I'm tired after every single round, and I'm not connecting as much as I'd like. You know, until you said that, embrace the chaos. You're gonna get hit, you know, you're gonna get hit, you know, what are you gonna do after that? And so that last round, I settled down, and I'm like, well, you know, I'm gonna get hit,
Yeah.
but I can decide on what I'm gonna get hit
Yeah,
by,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And so everything slowed down for me. I felt very much in the pocket, in the zone. And once I was in the zone, I was able to hold my breath.
Yeah.
I was able to move and counter.
Yeah.
And you know, and even when you would approach and you know will come out with a combination, I was able to find my balance with it and be able to, you know, and that's hard to do because you can't just write that sort of stuff down. Embrace the chaos. Right. You got to fucking throw yourself in the chaos to really understand what it feels like, that sort of energy. Yeah. And that's where you train. Yeah. You know, that's where you train, and that's where you really learn to understand your capability within that situation.
Absolutely, man. I one of the because I've heard this all the time. You hear this a ton in martial arts. But I was watching some training videos. I was watching some guys out at Sensei Ludwig's gym there in Colorado. They were doing some sparring rounds and stuff, and he's kind of narrating it as the guys are in the back, and they're doing light kind of sparring drills, you know. And essentially, he says, "You're just trying to make sense of the chaos. You're trying to find order in the chaos." And again, I mean, it's not something that you've never heard before.
Mm-hmm.
You hear people talk about all the time in martial arts and stuff, but for some reason that one time when I heard it and I sat and I just watched the students develop and watch how they were able to find order in the chaos, and it really started to resonate with me. And ever since then, I've personally been focusing on that.
Sure.
You know, just staying a lot more calm and understanding that I'm going to get hit.
Right. There's
not one fighter in existence. Floyd Mayweather is one of the best evasive boxers of all time.
Sure.
He still gets hit. You're gonna get hit. It doesn't matter how fucking good you are, you're gonna get hit. And like you said, it's understanding what you're gonna get hit by and knowing how you're gonna react. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna wait because at some point this is gonna come. Sure. And then you all of a sudden you start recognizing patterns. Okay, well this is why I'm getting hit. Those first couple of rounds, you didn't see any patterns. I was doing the same thing to you. Right. I break it down after round, like this is what I'm doing every time.
I didn't see it, sir. I was just trying to breathe and survive, man.
Yeah, and then but as soon as you calm down, all of a sudden, like you said, you started countering me. You were a lot smoother. You weren't responding. I just kept putting that pressure on you. You know, just walking forward, and eventually you stop backing up, and you're like, "Fucking hit me then."
Right.
You know. And
I don't know if I said that.
Yeah. That's the vibe I got.
Sure.
That's the vibe I got.
Good.
But no, it's absolutely, you know, and we talk about it. You know, you can't just say it. Mm-hmm. You have to actually put yourself through it. You know, and sometimes it takes a lot of iterations of the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, we say the same shit a lot week to week, but even for us, me specifically, sometimes it takes a lot of times of hearing, find order in the chaos, and then eventually it clicks, and you see it, and then you can feel it.
You can feel it.
And then you can maybe help explain it to somebody else, you know, and make sense of it from there.
You know, and I think, it's similar to hopping on stage, you know, in front of a few hundred people, and because that's chaotic, that's a lot of energy, that's a lot of attention, and it's a lot of pressure. And so if you try to, react to that, man, you don't really know what's going to happen. You're going to draw blanks. You're going to freeze up. But if you embrace it, and you feel everything that that you're there for, that you're supposed to be doing, it's going to start coming natural. I mean, it doesn't take, it doesn't go without repetition and practice and things like that. But it's the same. And earlier on, I remember, I think a couple weeks ago, we were talking about it first. When I put myself in that situation, I would just fucking black out completely until I was able to, fully be a part of it more, and I could feel things slow down. And so now even my anticipation before getting up on the stage is different. Because I understand what it's going to feel like. I understand how I've responded in the past, and I can, adapt to the things that I need to change in order to, leave a better impression or have a better performance. And it's certainly the same with fighting, or honestly, I guarantee it's the same with any situation that you hop into.
Absolutely.
Any situation.
For me, a big thing when I'm talking to newer students about jiu-jitsu, because a lot of times when you're sparring jiu-jitsu, you do a 5-minute round, and afterwards, if you try to pick anything that happened in that round, most people when I started, I couldn't remember. I do a 5-minute round. I do say 10 5-minute rounds in a training session. I wouldn't remember anything that happened. I would just know that I was exhausted, my body hurt, and I got tapped out a lot. One of the biggest things I talk to about new students is I tell them, you know, give yourself time. Eventually, you're going to be able to remember something that happened in a round.
Right.
And when I talk to my coach Paul, when we talk about a roll now, he'll say, okay, well, when you did this, this happened. When you did this, this happened. And he'll remember, you know, a 5-minute round, he'll remember 4 minutes and 45 seconds of what happened.
Right.
Whereas for me, even, you know, 6 years into training, I'll remember half of what happened.
Right.
Or he'll say, remember this situation? I'll say, kinda.
Right.
You know, but eventually over time, you start to be able to remember stuff. And what that is your understanding of chaos. Because the first time you roll, it seems like there's 1,000 things going on and nothing makes sense. And you're just holding your breath and trying not to get your arm ripped off. But eventually you start understanding the patterns, you start recognizing the movements, you start finding a little bit of order and say, okay, well, there's a lot of movement going on, but one thing I recognize is if I put my knee in this position, I'll be able to stop that person from moving in this direction.
Sure.
And then once you start to see those patterns, everything slows down, and you start to able to remember things more precisely. You know, I mean, I didn't remember anything from my first 3 fights. I didn't remember shit. And I mean, there were, I think between all 3 fights, I think there was like 7 minutes or something like that of fighting, and I didn't remember a single second. You know, I remember how I felt afterwards. You know, this last fight that I had, I remembered very specific moments from every single round, and I remembered the entire 3 minutes of the 3rd round where I was winning the round and I was making mistakes, and afterwards I was like, shit, I should have done this here, I should have done this here, I should have just play by play by play. You know, and not that I'm not some excellent fighter or anything like that, but constant repetitions and being exposed to the chaos as I was able to keep things slow, and I was able to make sense of everything that was going on. Even when I was in bad situations, I was like, all right, I know this, I've been here 1,000 times, this isn't anything different. It's not as chaotic as it looks at first, you know?
Yeah, that, you know, and that awareness is a definite level up.
Yeah,
you know, that's an example of level up, and that's the sort of stuff that helps you to trust the process. You know, and just how things work out. Because after the first couple rounds when we were sparring, and I'm out of breath and I'm covered in sweat, and you didn't even break a sweat at all, and you're like, I just understand the movements of of this chaos, you know. And I don't, you know, you said you were doing the same things over and over, and I didn't recognize that. I didn't understand the movements within the situation, and what a difference it makes. You know, if there was a visual before and after, me and you, you know, having those years and those reps in, compared to what I've got. But
well, and that's the thing. You know, my cardio is, you fucking train more than I do. Your cardio is better. If you and me did a bag workout together, you're gonna last longer on that bag than I will, probably, you know. But in that sparring situation, you develop a different kind of efficiency.
Makes sense.
You know, and I'm the same thing if I spar with Joey. It's gonna be the same thing. Comparatively, I'm gonna look way more exhausted. Right. Joey's got 10 years of experience on me, and he's smooth. He's more efficient with movements. If I train with Coach Paul, he is going to massacre me.
Mop you up.
And it's going to look like comparatively, he didn't even try.
Sure.
And his cardio is not better than mine. I am definitely in better shape than he is, but he's more efficient. He understands the movement better, and he can capitalize on the chaos more readily than I can. While I'm still trying to figure out whatever chaotic situation is, he's going to understand it, and he's, because he's been there more times,
You know, and I see a lot of, in relation to music or art, you know, a lot of rappers are, they'll sell their features for a certain amount of money. And they're like, I could write a feature in half an hour, and it'll be clean, it'll be this, but I'm not charging you $200 because that's my, because it's only half an hour. I'm charging you $200 because I've put 10 years in, in order to be able to do it that efficiently and that effectively. You're paying for the entire, all those 10 years of work put in. Just like Coach Paul. He, all the 10 years of work, or however 10 plus years, that's what it looks like. That's the outcome of it. And the value in that time. Wild.
Yeah, it's not just a 5-minute round of getting your ass whooped. In that 5-minute round, you're taking the culmination of 10 years of experience and you're putting it in
Right.
to 5 minutes.
Right, to your face.
Yeah, putting it into your face. If Coach Paul ever punched me in the face, I would be absolutely astonished.
Sure.
I don't think I've ever seen him throw a punch in my
You know,
life.
he doesn't even need to.
No, that's jiu-jitsu, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely, man. The understanding that we can use the culmination of our experiences when we embrace that chaos.
Right,
And I
that
think-
new environment.
Yeah. And if you find yourself in a new situation, if you find yourself in a situation you don't understand, you're not just all of a sudden in that situation. You're not just, I have to figure this out in 3 minutes.
Right.
You have, if it's life, for me, I have 33 years of reps. I have 33 years of experience that I can put to use in this situation.
Sure.
There's no reason for me to panic. If I stay calm, eventually I'm going to figure out, I'm going to see something I recognize, and I'm going to be able to capitalize on that, and I'm going to be able to improve my situation, put a little bit of order to the chaos.
Sure.
It's not just a singular moment. We don't have to define ourselves by that one moment.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. I think, I had some things come up, in my life in which I wasn't necessarily looking forward to, or that would, be kind of that I was adverse to. And one of the things I kept writing over and over is, don't forget the power of you on the situation.
Sure.
So no matter what the situation is, instead of just reacting to it, know that you can stand your ground and everything that you've been through, and understand about the self, help you adapt to that situation, and, changes the outcome greatly.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
But so I guess what I would like you guys, one of the things to take away is just to be able to ask yourself, how your seed, how your potential, how your purpose can grow in the environment that you keep around you, whether it's in your own head, in the group of people that you hang out with on a daily basis, or in the community that you're in.
The power of being able to change ourselves and accepting our ability and our responsibility to help change the environment around us and influence it, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thanks again for tuning in. What was this? This is number 28?
Number 27.
This is 27.
It's 27.
Excellent, man. Almost halfway through.
Almost.
Imagine that.
Almost.
Imagine that. So,
Absolutely.
Appreciate y'all. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, thank you guys.